Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Volunteer Coach Academy. I am Coach Vianney, and I am joined with Coach Derrick.
How's it going?
And today we are diving into a fun topic, often controversial at the youth sports level. Should you be adjusting the positions of your players and rotating those around throughout your season? We have 10 different things we're going to dive into, but I know that Coach Derrick and I can both say that as of recently, we've both experienced that on the coaching level. We've both had teams where that was kind of our mindset and our focus, and sometimes it was hard to forget the reason why we were doing it. So we find this topic to be extremely beneficial. So Derrick, why don't you start us off with kind of opening thoughts on why is adjusting players on a team crucial, not just good, crucial?
Yeah, it's super important, and you're going to get a lot of different opinions from parents. There's some parents who are on like that hyper-competitive end of the spectrum who just want their kid to be on a winning team and they want their kid to play one position. Then you're going to get parents who could care less about the winning. They want their kid to have, and you get everyone in the middle.
Right.
At the end of the day, it comes down to the fact that you're trying to help kids fall in love with the sport, and you want to develop a kid that understands the sport and hopefully can play anywhere on the field or anywhere within that sport. So it comes back to the kids, not us and what we're thinking is right or wrong.
Yeah, so we'll dive into some of these kind of main points we're going to be talking about. Number one, creating a complete athlete, right? When we start specializing essentially in a position too early, we're really taking away the opportunity for these kids to try different positions, develop in different positions, because the reality is we know that they develop at different rates, right? And they're youth, they're kids, like they're still developing their coordination, their balance, their hand-eye coordination, their stability, all the things that requires different stimuluses, and that looks like positions.
Yeah, for sure. You said it. The kids, especially when they're younger than 12, you might have a kid who got really tall really fast and you can't really figure out where his body's at. That doesn't mean that he shouldn't play a high skill position, because you want him exposed to that so that when he does figure it out, he's already ahead of the game, right? And some kids develop and they're really athletic really early on. Does that mean that they should have a leg up for the rest of their life over these kids that develop a little bit later? I'd say probably not.
Yeah.
So, developing complete athletes from player number 1 all the way down to player 12, super important. Like, leave no kid behind.
Right. The old saying, you're only as good as your weakest link, right?
For sure.
And we know that that's true at the youth level, in the sense that leagues often have these rules in place where kids have to play a certain amount of positions or a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
And we'll dive into what that might look like throughout a season. But the reality is, if you invest in developing your kid to become an all-around athlete and perform at all these different positions, especially early on in the season, when playoffs hit, when it really counts, you're going to have an upper leg, because you're going to have a more complete team overall.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. And then we also know that the opportunity to adjust positions is going to improve their field IQ, right? They're going to be different style of students of the game. And I know you often talk about respecting the other positions. Can you dive into that?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of mixing the kids around as best as we can, as long as we can set them up for success. And that looks a little bit different from sport to sport. But kids who understand each position on the field from the inside out are going to be able to blend those positions together. And when I say blend, if you have an 8-year-old playing youth soccer and he or she's a forward, she needs to understand how to interact with the midfielders. If they never play midfield, they don't really understand that interaction from the other side, so they're not going to succeed on offense as well or put themselves into position. On the baseball standpoint, a right fielder interacts a lot with the first baseman, second baseman on cut plays.
Right.
And if your first and second basemen never play the outfield, then they're not going to understand that interaction as well. They're not going to position themselves on those cuts the way that they need to. So getting that well-rounded vision of every single game at an early age is going to set them up for success in the long run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know we've talked about this before, but it kind of ties into, the having empathy for people at different positions because you understand that position, right? But it creates better team chemistry. And the reality is when players go on to play postseason all-stars, or maybe they go in to play travel ball, things like that, we see that if you're too specialized on any particular team, when you go to a team full of really good athletes, most of them have probably played mainly shortstop, maybe pitcher, maybe catcher, maybe third base. It's like those kids need to have the confidence and the capabilities, the skills, the understanding and awareness at all the other positions, because you're going to have to play them somebody's going to have to play a different position.
Yeah.
So I think that you set them up for success from a postseason standpoint anyways, right?
Definitely. Once you get on that all-star team, you want the kids who aren't just athletic, but the ones who have played the different positions recently, who can insert themselves into that spot and find success immediately. You don't want to be on the all-star team trying to teach kids too many new concepts when you're preparing for upcoming games. You want the kids who've done it already, done it a lot, and have already found success with it. It really is best for the kids at the end, right? And it makes them more dynamic and they can contribute to their team in more ways. Kind of makes me think of NFL football, and the best cornerback or defensive back of all time is Deion Sanders. And a lot of people forget that he played offense too, even in the NFL. And he wasn't the best receiver, but he played receiver, and I think that he might have been the best defensive back ever because of his experience at receiver. He understood that position. He knew who he was playing against and what they were looking to accomplish, and was able to put himself into positions that other defensive backs might not have fully understood the way that he did and didn't have the experience with. Even at the highest levels, it pays dividends, and we can take that concept all the way down to 4, 5, and 6-year-olds.
Yeah. I mean, oftentimes when people advocate for this, for, hey, move the positions around for the players, it's often thought of like that's the benefit for the weaker players. But the reality is like this benefits even your best players because, like you said, it'll serve them all through their athletic career.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and it obviously also gives the coach opportunities over the course of the season to truly identify strengths, right? Because we know that kids show up, we talk about this often, kids show up and you have some kids that are gamers. Some kids that like will bring the heat, bring the competition, perform under pressure in games. And if you're not giving them that opportunity to play those positions or different positions in games, how do you know that you truly have the best people set up for success, especially as it comes down to playoff games?
Yeah.
Right? Because, and we actually had a conversation about this yesterday. You can practice ground balls, for example, in baseball often, and you might have a kid that has great fundamentals and can throw the ball well to first base or second base or whatever it might be, but you add the pressure of, hey, there's a base runner, there's a runner going to first, or they're having to make adjustments under pressure. Sometimes they crack.
Yeah, some run drills really, really well. If I stick a kid at shortstop and I'm like, hey, I'm going to hit you the ball, throw it to first. Like, I'm already telling them what to do. But in a game, when you might go 3 innings without getting a ball hit to you, do you have the attention span to wait for the first opportunity that comes up? Are you ready when that opportunity comes up? Have you done your pre-pitch routine? Do you know where you're going to go with the ball when it comes to you? And practice is easy. Obviously, we can work on those skills and drills and build up fundamentals, but some kids just love the game a little bit more early on, are going to pay attention and are ready for it in the game. And that might not be your best drill runner.
Right.
Might just be a gamer who's paying attention, his head's in the game, and he knows what to do. He just may not do it the best quite yet.
Yeah, I mean, that's not to take away from the fact that kids who are strong fundamentally, I imagine, I don't know if there's a stat for this, but probably outperform those who don't have the fundamental skills. And I know you and I are both,
On average, yeah.
Yeah, are both big advocates of having solid fundamentals, practicing the fundamentals all the time. And that's a story for another day. On average, you are probably going to see those kids excel substantially more, but that doesn't mean that raw athletes can't outperform or out-impact kids who just don't have that game sense or that game competitiveness and aggressiveness.
Definitely. And you'll see that early on, right? The younger the age group, the lower the attention span. So you might have some kids who can focus for 8 minutes at practice and run a drill really well, but then in the game they can't stay focused for longer than 10 minutes at a time, and that's at the detriment of them and the team. It doesn't always need to be the kid who does it the best in practice.
Right.
Yeah.
And then kind of more of the things that maybe don't get talked about as much. Burnout. Like, that's a real thing. If these are just kids, at the end of the day, of course they want to be really good at what they do, and most of them are, if you're going to ask, we run a softball camp or a baseball camp, and I remember at one point the coaches were going around and be like, what position is your favorite? Like, most of them are saying pitcher, shortstop, catcher, like there's clearly positions where they feel they stand out the most because it's like the most popular positions. Yeah. But the reality is that at some point or another, like, the mix is good. Like, getting them out into that outfield, trying to dive for some balls or trying to mix it up, it prevents that burnout from happening. I think right now I read a stat recently that by age 13, we're seeing a substantial drop in kids playing sports. And I think all these things that we're talking about, including burnout, is part of that.
Yeah, the burnout is real. I think that a lot of parents, at the detriment of kids, are starting to develop this hyper competitiveness, not just with an individual game, but with like the trajectory of their child on like making it to the pros, right? Everyone's trying to set their kids up for success at such a young age. The kids aren't really ready for that yet, and I think the kids want to be competitive when they do it, but do they want to be competitive for a few hours a week, or does that competition need to like run their whole life at the age of 11? Like, I would say no. And the parents I've noticed dictate that. They push them in that direction, The mindset of FOMO just in the United States, that if you're not doing A, B, and C, you're going to be behind when you're 16 years old, is being pushed to you so that people can run their business model. Kids get tired of it, right? They love the sport, but then when it becomes a job, when they're kids and they should just be having fun and then playing a lot of different sports, not just one, they get burnt out. They don't want to do it anymore. And flipping positions is a way to keep things spicy for them. Yeah. A lot of kids want to play center field. They love the idea of running in 20 feet and making a diving catch. They love the idea of hosing someone out at third base. You watch Major League Baseball players, like the right fielders, like Tatis, he makes a catch at the fence and he throws it in. Like, kids want to be like that guy. In, say, Little League, coaches just push the fact that first base, shortstop, catcher, and pitcher are the most important spots on the field, and that's where they need to stick the best players. They need to play there, but they also need to play other spots. Yeah.
And I think the mindset, so like just quickly, like parents, this is like a gentle reminder to check ourselves, right? As he's talking about all this, I'm like thinking of all the things that me being kind of the more competitive parent that tends to, push our son Troy a little bit more, like trying to check myself a little bit. For example, we have our son plays 3 different sports, and we know that those are 3 very different sports, and we can hold them accountable to certain expectations differently for each sport. We know, like, for example, basketball is his hobby. Like, he just wants to go out there, play, have fun. He's learning the sport, and we know that we're going to do our best to let him do that. Where he's a little bit more focused on baseball, and we can have different expectations and different kind of feedback for him because he's way more attentive. He's way more aware.
He asks for help more often there.
Yeah. But yeah, burnout's a real thing, and it's even just sadder as a coach to see it happening at a higher level, because a lot of times these are really good athletes, kids that, have plenty of years, could be playing for plenty more years. And so, but that starts early on. That burnout starts from the fact that from an early age, they're just not getting a change and they're not really playing other sports is a big deal, right? That's probably another topic for another day, but multi-sport athletes playing multiple sports is also crucial and key.
Sure.
But let's kind of circle back to another topic, injury risk. And we see this when I think of some of the sports that we've been around recently, Little League being one of them, right? The moment your kids start to excel at pitcher in particular or catcher, it's because they are such impact positions. Like we're parents and coaches. I mean, we've experienced it. I remember 2 distinct conversations, a stranger, and their kid was 9 years old, had pitched against us the whole game, and then we happened to be eating at the same spot, and he told us that his kid was pitching all weekend for like 3 or 4 games, and we were like mind blown as a parent, and semi-bragging, right? Like it was kind of like they were excited for it. Yeah. It was a higher level tournament, but
I think it was a travel ball player.
Yeah, and
if I remember correctly.
Like, I mean, it was not our place to be like, wait a second, like you should be considering his pitch count. There's a lot of a risk for injury. Injury is a real thing. I mean, we're seeing a lot of statistics, especially from baseball pitchers who are having these surgeries at an earlier age, even as early as middle school, high school.
I think that's probably the largest example, right, of injury risk for kids in sports is pitching, right? Their arms and their tendons and ligaments in the shoulder and the elbow, they're not designed to pitch like a major leaguer would throw. And some of these travel ball teams are having kids throw certain amounts of pitches on one day, then coming back the next, and even big leaguers would never even consider stuff like that. I think that it comes down to, one, the parents. You need to learn to protect your kid from that stuff, right? You have to have an understanding of what's right and wrong, and if something just doesn't feel a little right, you need to dig in a little bit deeper into that feeling. But I mean, in their defense, they might not understand, and when you don't understand, you have to be really careful with who you buy into, who you trust, right? And these travel ball coaches, they need to have the best interests of the kid in mind too. And they need to be able to check themselves, and if they can't check themselves, have assistant coaches who are willing to check them to stick to the culture of what's going on, because 9 and 10-year-old kids don't need to be throwing 200 plus pitches over the course of a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Right? And Little League, fortunately, has rules in place to regulate that, but travel ball doesn't necessarily have that. So why do we need to put a kid at risk potentially for the rest of his life to win some medal and say that your team won when those kids are not going to remember that when they're 16? Half those kids aren't even going to be pitchers when they're 16. They're going to be playing other positions. And parents need to protect their kids.
Well, and those lines kind of get blurred when you're bouncing back and forth between travel ball and Little League, right? We experienced that some where you have a kid that's playing on the travel ball team pitching or catching. I find catching to be obviously not as dramatic because they're not throwing at the same velocity.
But they're squatting down for, right?
I mean, it's
sitting in a squat for a bunch of
for sure
time.
But then when they come in and play Little League, yes, we have the regulations in Little League, but how many of those coaches are in contact with parents or in contact with travel ball coaches to make sure that as a team, as a support system, that they're keeping this kid's best interest in mind?
I mean, I personally think it's probably a little bit too much to do both simultaneously. Depending on the game schedule and the practice schedule, maybe not. But I did have that in that specific example this past fall, and I just thought about it for a little bit, and it's like, okay, we're going to hold this kid and his family accountable to the Little League standard. So I'm going to follow up with them on their travel ball tournaments and whatever action they had in those games. If it interfered with the Little League pitch and catch regulations for our games, and I kept those in account as if it was our own game. So there were times where that child didn't pitch or catch because he pitched a certain amount of pitches the day before. Right. I'm not going to pretend like that didn't happen, you know? Like I think that's kind of like that moral check.
Right.
It's like, all right, am I just going to pretend like he didn't throw yesterday for this team because it wasn't on our team? It's like, no, like I'm looking out for the best interest of this kid. And
Right.
yeah, we don't need to, we have other people. They can pitch. He can play different positions.
Well, but I think coaches and maybe even parents feel a certain sense of pressure because not all teams and not all coaches either have built confidence in a variety of players or they have confidence in their like top 2 to 3. And if one of those kids is one of those top 2 or 3, they feel this need to throw them into the mix because of the winning, because of the competitiveness. But that kind of all plays into the whole concept of why you should be playing various players at different positions. If you have if all your players have more tools in their toolbox, like you're going to be able to use more players and avoid situations like this when they arise, because they will arise.
Yeah.
And when you have to make those tough decisions, they won't be as hard because you'll have more people, more kids to choose from.
Absolutely. Yeah. Especially at the younger ages, I mean, there's a time and a place to start specializing a little bit more, depending on what's at stake, right? Get to high school, pretty standard that you're going to play 1 to 2 positions, right? Obviously, high school is going to have kids that pitch and hit, and when they're not pitching, they play a position in the field. But the field positions don't necessarily switch too often. They'll switch based on who's pitching. And when I was in high school, I played second base as a junior, but then I was our center fielder as a senior because we needed a leader in center field. And I pitched both years. So it was like having that dynamic of being able to move the two was super valuable for me to help contribute and help my team find success. In the younger ages, like Little League or AYSO, 12 and under, when kids are 12 and under, they need to learn the whole game. And who cares who wins the playoffs at the end? The first half of the season, I think that they should play a lot of positions, and then maybe they specialize towards the end. But the whole season doesn't need to be set up where they need to win every single game from day one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we dive into the concept of equal playing time, right? And you mentioned the splitting the seasons. I really like and admire how you break down your seasons and how that contributes to not just switching athletes around, but also how it equates to equal playing time. Break that down for us, because I think it's super valuable.
So to provide a couple of examples and then get into a solution, Troy played AYSO soccer this fall, and right from opening day, game 1 counted towards their record, and only one team got to win the league and go on to TOCs. So every single game matters all the way through the season. So the coaches, they're not incentivized to get the kids spread out across the field. They're incentivized to put forth their very best lineup every single possible quarter that they can within the regulations of having everyone sit 1 quarter before anyone can sit 2. So we ended up in a situation where our kid only played forward unless it was a blowout. Then they moved him somewhere else. But a lot of the games were close. So he didn't play too much defense or midfield. And I think, one, that comes down to the league's culture of setting the coaches up so that they don't end up in that situation. But also, two, the coaches setting a culture and letting the parents know on day 1 at your team meeting before you even practice, like, hey, this is my mission with the players, each individual player, to help them develop. And that might mean that we're spreading positions out and then potentially not having our best foot forward to try and win a game. But when things get tough and the game's close, I'm going to stick to that and have my assistant coaches hold me accountable to what I said I was going to do, as opposed to in the heat of the moment letting competition win and then fixing the lineup to try and do our best. So one thing I really liked what we did with Sarah Mesa Little League for baseball last spring was we split the season into 3 parts.
Now, when you say we, it's like your team.
No, the league took an active involvement in this because we wanted this to be part of the league culture, at least it was minors and majors, but we always have playoffs, and we'll consider that the final third of the season.
Okay.
But the regular season we split into 2. So we had a pool play on the second half of the regular season where every team played each other once.
Okay.
We had 5 teams, so that consisted, or we had 6 teams. It consisted of 5 games, one against each team. And then we had the first half of the season where we also played each team one. We also traveled around and played other little leagues.
Okay.
But what we did is we made the first encounter between each team. It was a game. We played hard. We tried to win, but it didn't count towards our postseason record. And what I mean by that, if we went, I think we actually went 0-5.
Okay.
But we were mixing around the positions, letting a lot of kids try to pitch. We were figuring out what positions kids could excel at and helping set them up for success. And that came at the detriment of the score sometimes. We stuck to it to a T. We even added in, which wasn't a requirement, that every kid on our team played an inning of outfield during that time. And that opened up more infield innings for some of the less experienced players. We went 0-5. The second half of the regular season, the pool play, that counted towards our seeding record. So those games mattered a little bit more because they seeded us for playoffs.
Right.
So then we transitioned. Okay, so now we're getting a little more competitive. Now we're not having every single player play the outfield, but we're still mixing around. The league rules of having no kids sit out a second inning before everyone sits out once were still in play. And then we competed a little bit harder, still within our culture. And we went 3-2 or 3-1-1. I think maybe we had a tie. And we went from 0-5 to 3-1-1 because we changed the way that we were playing the game. But it allowed us in the first half to provide a lot of opportunities. And then the second half, we had that set up to compete. And then the third half was the playoffs. And it's like, okay, now the rules get a little bit more stricter. There's a little bit more at stake. And then we compete.
Yeah.
And we put our most competitive foot forward. Clarifying that with the families before the season even started, how that season was going to go, was huge. They were all on board. They loved it. And when we had each transition, even if it meant their kid played a little bit less in the infield or sat out a little bit more in the playoffs, like everyone was on board with the mission. We did exactly what we said we were going to do. And, no complaints. Everyone had a great time, and all the kids were rallying behind each other, and they wanted to win. So it was awesome.
Well, and also I imagine to some degree that gives the kids some incentive to continue to work hard, not just at practice, but on their own, right? If they knew that, hey, the second 2 parts of the season are going to be rewarded based on my skill level, I'm going to work a little harder. I'm going to maybe practice a little bit more out of practices and and kind of take responsibility of earning that time that they're on the field. And parents too, and families too. It's like, because the reality is, you know, when Troy's practicing, it's very rare that he's practicing by himself. So he does go out into the backyard and practice on his own sometimes, but more often than not, mom or dad are there, usually are helping him. So this is an investment from the families to say, hey, I want my kid to have some, compete for playing time. Like it doesn't always all happen at practices. There's just not enough time sometimes.
Yeah. That's, we can still, while trying to spread out playing time and positional placement, we can still promote those really important qualities, right? Like we don't want to suppress competition. Like it's part of life. Everyone's competitive at different degrees, and we don't want to pretend like that doesn't exist. Right? We don't want to hand over opportunities that aren't earned, and kids that earn it, like we want to provide them with more. But from day one, we need to have a system that nurtures the kids, especially at the younger age groups. It's a nurturing process. You want to help them fall in love with the game. And if they fall in love with it, they want to be better at it naturally. And if they want to be better at it, they're going to start asking for those extra reps. We really look at it as that nurturing process and leave no kid behind, while also at the end of the season providing those kids who really worked hard and got better with what they deserved that year.
Yeah.
And that's good too, because the kids who don't get it, they can talk to their families and they can choose to learn from it, or they can choose to make up excuses.
Right.
And that's an early life lesson. It's like, okay, we didn't get this year. Why not?
Yeah.
Did we work hard? Yes or no? Did we work smart? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Did we deserve it? Yes or no? I think that's important reflection that even like a 9-year-old kid can look back at a season and handle.
Yeah, and that dives right into one of our next topics, which is teaching them problem solving skills, right? Teaching them to kind of fail a little bit too, right? When some of those answers to them, it's like, no, I didn't work very hard. I didn't earn it. It's like teaching them, okay, what comes from this? Do I complain about my coach? Do I sit there and just are pissed because I wasn't selected to play or start or play on the all-star team or whatever? Or do we turn around and say, all right, why? And what are we going to do differently? Or my next opportunity, or what can I do in the between my seasons to get better at it?
Yeah, for sure. You didn't get to play the position you want to play. Why? Maybe you didn't develop the skills. Maybe in the games you didn't make the plays, right? You're asked to go play a different position. What type of attitude did you respond with? Were you negative and pouting because you had to go to one spot? Or you're like, all right, like I'm there. Like I'm running out to my position and I'm going to be ready when the ball comes my way. I'm going to be ready to make that pass. I'm going to be ready to take the shot. I'm going to be ready to make the screen or catch the ball, like whatever it might be. It's like, what type of attitude do we have about the entire process? Do we have a victim mentality, or do we have a competitor who will do anything for their team, not just what they think is best for them?
Right. Yeah. And this one in particular, teaching them problem solving, obviously it sounds like it's very much on the kid, but as a coach, we can take such an active part in this. Take notes, coaches. Like, take notes throughout your season, throughout your games. Give kids feedback. Sometimes you're going to get those wonderful kids, their coach's dream, that are going to ask for feedback. You might get some families who ask for feedback. But the reality is that we don't learn unless we're told why, right? And then you're going to get a lot of kids who just believe that they're better than they are and won't ask for feedback. But take the extra time as a coach. That is your responsibility. You're teaching them to develop. You're helping them to develop. You're challenging them. You're empowering them. You're part of that journey. And if that journey doesn't include some gentle feedback and criticism, done in a proactive way, in a positive way, like, these kids might walk away not feeling like they learned anything. I remember some of the practices we've had. At the end of the practice, you always ask them, like, what did you learn today? And it's so frustrating when a kid's like, nothing.
Yeah.
Like, wait, what? We just introduced like 3 or 4 different topics. What do you mean nothing? And sometimes those kids like get tunnel vision in their practices and they're just out there, running through the motions. And sometimes you have to pull them aside and be like, hey, Johnny, and I'm not, using anybody's name in particular, but I think at this practice, like, these are the areas where we can improve next time. And these are the things that you can work on. And if you have some time outside of practice, spend 20 minutes doing that before you show up so that we can see that improvement. Yeah,
I love the questions at the end because you can tell who's bought in. You can tell who cares a little bit more.
Right.
It comes down to just buying in and taking responsibility for yourself, right? And they don't need to have the perfect answer. They're young.
Right.
But you want to invest in the kids who want to be there and care. Like, you naturally will invest in the kids who like want to be coached by you. Right. So it's fun to ask that and see where everyone's at, but just force that reflection. Like, let's reflect on the last 75 to 90 minutes that we just invested. Yeah. Like, what do we get out of it?
Yeah. It helps them start thinking, processing, like, what did I get out of this?
Yeah.
Anyways, that's great. At the end of the day, the way we look at it, that's what youth sports should be about, right? Like, development. Yeah. I think all these different areas really are a strong reason to consider how crucial and the importance of rotating position. And sometimes that's going to get hard, coaches, because it's going to come at the expense of winning. And we've been there. We've both been on 2 teams recently where, I mean, I coached a basketball team and we had some of the best athletes, some of the greatest kids, most coachable kids, but we didn't win. We won 1 game all season. Yeah. And that was really hard. And as a coach, that feels like a lot of pressure, and it feels like you're letting your kids down. And there's definitely times where my assistant coach and I were like, what did we do wrong? Like, what are we missing? And there's definitely things that we would do differently in the seasons in the future. But at the end of the day, a lot of the concepts that we're talking about to help them become stronger players in the long term, we applied. And that will serve them well, and
They'll be able to build on that.
Yeah, they'll probably forget about the fact that they only won one game. Maybe not, but they're kids.
Yeah, I mean, I've, with baseball, been kind of running the same mission for the last 5 years, and we're kind of split between really strong seasons and poor seasons. I wouldn't say that if you have a coach in your league who's won the championship 8 years straight, that they're necessarily developing kids the best. You know, they might have a philosophy, helps them win games. Like, I can think back to when I was 13 and we played in this pony league, and there was a coach who like won every year. And everyone thought he was the best, but he coached putting fear in the kids.
Right. I was thinking the same.
And he also was known for running a squeeze play. Like he bunted a lot.
Right.
But the 13-year-old kids were at that time not really capable. They weren't athletic enough yet to run in at full speed and field a bunt and then make a good throw. Right. If they fielded it, like making a good throw off balance, this isn't a thing. The pros are great at it because they practice that.
Right.
They look off balance, but they've done it so many times they're balanced and they can make a good throw. Kids couldn't. So they kind of manipulated. They found a play that manipulated the age group and ran with it. It'd kind of be like having a middle school basketball team with one kid who's 6'6" already and everyone else is like 5'8". Like, do you have the best team, or you just have this kid that's able to manipulate the age group, right?
Yeah.
So it's all about, I think it's all about the mission, and it brings you back and grounds you. Things get frustrating. It's like, all right, what did I set out to do? Was it my mission? Like, oh, we're going to get first place, or was the mission develop the kids? And when you think about the development, then it helps make your decisions a lot easier, and you're at peace with it, regardless of what the result is.
Absolutely. I love it. All right, y'all. Well, we're going to wrap it up with that. Do you have anything else that you want to add?
No, thanks for listening.
Check back if you are a coach and you're looking for some guidance in what you're doing with your season. We do offer one-on-one coaching. We're constantly dropping some resources. Our website is coming soon. And leagues, if you need some guidance on how to best set up your coaches, reach out to us. That's something that Derrick's very good at and can help you with. And all around, we're just here to help grow youth sports, help youth sports parents who are youth sport volunteers find that confidence, that comfort, and that kind of mission that Derrick's talking about, so that you all can excel and help our little guys and girls excel as well. Anyways, have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time.